Adolf Hitler, the architect of the Second World War and the Holocaust, was a man of stark contradictions. He was a militant vegetarian who presided over the slaughter of millions. A teetotaler, yet he intoxicated a nation with a poisonous ideology. This paradox, his private sensibilities versus public actions, reveals a profound disconnect that enabled unimaginable cruelty. His personal life was not separate from his politics. It fueled his destructive ideology. By examining his eccentricities, we better understand how he consolidated power and bent a nation to his will. To understand the man behind the swastika is to grasp the terrifying mechanisms of tyranny. Analyzing Hitler's personal life is not an attempt to excuse or diminish his crimes. He remains responsible for the most destructive war and the Holocaust. The purpose is to show how personal traits, in a specific context, can become catalysts for immense evil. Viewing Hitler as purely demonic is comforting, but misleading. His evil was human. His personal failures and resentments became the foundation of his political movement. We dissect these elements not to humanize, but to comprehend the historical phenomenon and prevent its recurrence. Every detail must be seen through the lens of its ultimate consequence: mass death and suffering. Hitler's earliest ambition was not to rule, but to create. He dreamed of becoming a celebrated artist, pouring his hopes into every brushstroke. Yet, time and again, the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts rejected him, shattering his confidence and leaving him humiliated and deeply resentful. These wounds would fester, shaping the man he would become. Wandering Vienna's bustling streets, Hitler found himself surrounded by social unrest and political tension. He blamed his failures not on his own shortcomings, but on what he saw as a corrupt and unfair system. This sense of injustice fueled his growing anti-Semitism and a deepening sense of victimhood, which would become central to his worldview. Living in poverty, often in crowded shelters and flophouses, he scraped by painting postcards for tourists. Each day, his bitterness grew, and he nurtured a worldview shaped by resentment, envy, and a longing for recognition that always seemed out of reach. As his artistic dreams faded, Hitler turned to politics, obsessively reading pamphlets and attending rallies. His creative frustration transformed into political rage. He would become an artist of politics, determined to sculpt nations instead of canvases, channeling his energy into a new, far more dangerous ambition. The failed artist now sought to master Europe itself, overcompensating for his creative impotence with destructive ambition. His vision was no longer of beauty, but of power and domination, reshaping the continent through force. His political career became a grotesque response to personal rejection, a quest to prove himself on a world stage after being denied acceptance as an artist. The world wouldn't have his art, so it would have his war. His need for validation twisted into a drive for destruction, leaving devastation in his wake. His bitterness and rage fueled his rise, turning personal failure into a global catastrophe that would scar the world for generations. The architect of ruin was born from the ashes of a failed dream, his legacy forever marked by the devastation he unleashed. Rejected as a painter, Hitler clung to the idea of being an architect, envisioning himself as a builder-emperor. He saw architecture not just as an art, but as a tool to shape history and leave a permanent mark on the world. In his mind, stone and steel could outlast any political movement, and he was determined to make his vision endure for 1,000 years. His architectural ambitions were inseparable from his political project. He wanted to rebuild Germany as a monument to Nazi power. Every building, every plaza, was meant to project dominance and inspire awe, turning the very landscape into a stage for his ideology. The scale and grandeur of these projects were intended to impress both Germans and the world, signaling the supposed permanence of the regime. With Albert Speer, his trusted architect, he planned a new Berlin, Germania, filled with colossal structures meant to intimidate and immortalize his regime. The city was to feature the Volkshalle, a domed hall so vast it would have dwarfed any building on Earth, and grand avenues lined with imposing monuments. These plans reflected not only ambition, but a desire to reshape reality itself. These buildings were propaganda, designed to dwarf the individual and glorify the state. The architecture was meant to make people feel small, insignificant compared to the power of the regime. Every stone, every column was a message. The state is eternal, and you are just a part of its machinery. His obsession with legacy was a direct extension of his narcissism. Hitler believed that by building on a monumental scale, he could secure his place in history forever. He was less interested in the lives of ordinary people than in the grandeur of his own myth, and architecture became his chosen instrument for self-glorification. Ultimately, his dreams of construction resulted only in destruction. Europe's capitals lay in ruins, not reborn. The war he unleashed shattered the very cities he wanted to immortalize, leaving behind devastation instead of glory. The monuments he dreamed of were never completed. Instead, the world witnessed the collapse of his vision in fire and rubble. The only lasting monuments were concentration camps and rubble. The legacy he left behind was not one of greatness, but of suffering and loss. The grand buildings he imagined were replaced by the grim reality of destruction and the memory of unimaginable atrocities. The architect of Germania became the demolisher of Europe. In the end, his quest to build a 1,000-year empire in stone only ensured that his name would be forever linked to devastation, not creation. Hitler's private life was marked by rigid, eccentric habits, especially regarding health. He was deeply preoccupied with his own well-being, often to the point of obsession. His daily routines were meticulously structured, and he imposed strict rules on himself and those around him, believing that discipline over the body was essential for greatness. A committed vegetarian, he shunned meat and promoted his lifestyle as virtuous, reinforcing his sense of superiority. He often lectured guests about the moral and physical benefits of vegetarianism, using his diet as a symbol of purity and self-control. This dietary choice became part of his carefully crafted public persona. He was a hypochondriac, terrified of illness and obsessed with purity, yet paradoxically dependent on daily drug cocktails from his physician. Dr. Theodor Morell, his personal doctor, administered a bewildering array of pills, injections, and tonics, which Hitler believed were essential to maintain his health and energy. His public image was one of iron discipline, but privately he was anxious and frail. Behind closed doors, he suffered from chronic digestive issues, insomnia, and frequent bouts of nervous exhaustion, which he tried desperately to conceal from his followers. The man demanding strength and purity from his people was himself plagued by weakness and dependency. While he preached resilience and vigor, he relied heavily on medical interventions and the constant attention of his doctors, exposing a stark contrast between his ideals and his reality. His obsession with bodily purity mirrored his political drive to cleanse the nation. The same compulsions that governed his personal life were projected onto society, fueling policies of exclusion and persecution. Personal anxieties became a rationale for mass murder. His inner fears and insecurities were transformed into a deadly ideology, justifying violence on an unimaginable scale. The tyrant's private fears were projected onto the world with catastrophic results, leaving a legacy of devastation and suffering that would haunt history for generations to come. Hitler's public image was a meticulously crafted performance. He studied his own gestures and expressions, perfecting the role of the Führer for maximum emotional impact. At rallies, he appeared as a messianic figure, offering simple answers and promising glory. This persona masked a private reality of lethargy and volatility. His charisma was not innate, but a tool for manipulation and control. The Führer myth allowed him to bypass traditional structures and rule absolutely. This personality cult radicalized Nazi policy, enabling atrocities like the Holocaust. The mask of charisma was a weapon as destructive as any in his arsenal. Behind the Führer's facade was a man of contradictions. Energetic in public, lethargic, and unstructured in private. At his retreat, he indulged in long meals and movies, far from the heroic image he projected. His passivity was interrupted by violent rages, terrifying even his closest associates. Deeply dependent on his inner circle, he surrounded himself with sycophants, isolating himself from reality. This echo chamber reinforced his delusions and led to disastrous decisions as the war turned against Germany. The flaws of the private man became the failures of the warlord. Hitler's worldview was anchored in a belief in fate. He saw himself as chosen by Providence. This conviction fueled his risk-taking and messianic certainty, but also his detachment from reality. He dabbled in superstition and dismissed rational advice, trusting only his instincts. As defeat loomed, he retreated into fantasy, convinced destiny would save him. His fatalism justified reckless gambles and insulated him from responsibility. The war's end revealed a leader lost in delusion, unable to face reality. His belief in destiny led Germany into utter ruin. Examining Hitler's personal world does not make him sympathetic. It makes his crimes more terrifying. His flaws, resentment, insecurity, delusion, were amplified by absolute power. The monster was a man, and that is the most chilling warning. His private obsessions became genocidal state policy. The story of Hitler is a stark reminder of the dangers of personality cults and unchecked power. The ruins of Berlin and Auschwitz stand as eternal warnings of what happens when humanity fails to remain vigilant.